All right, class, first lesson. Gerunds, participles, and infinitives. Verbs that can be turned and twisted into other things. So, don't give in to astonishment. This is our first lesson online. Luckily, this is a video, so if you have difficulty understanding it, you can replay this video. You can also shoot me an email. I synced my school email up to my phone. So if you have any questions, shoot me an email. That way I'll respond as soon as I can. So again, these sound confusing. And they might come off that way, but the thing is you already know how to do this. You may not know that you know all of this already, but since you're all native English speakers, you do in fact know how to do all of this. You might not be aware that you already know how to do all of this, but you do in fact know. All we're doing is just telling you what they're called. We're giving names to things you already know. So don't panic, don't freak out, right? Hitchhiker's Guide, best advice, don't panic. And again, I'm available for any emails. If you have any questions, just go ahead and shoot me an email and we can talk. And if need be, we will, I can upload another video and maybe do some explanations. But let's get going. So gerunds are when verbs transform into nouns, right? Gerunds are when you add an ing to a verb. For example, drumming. Drumming makes me feel alive. Drumming in this sentence is the subject, right? It is the noun, makes is the verb, and then me is the object. So this is the subject. So it functions as a noun here, right? It is the thing. Drumming is a thing in this particular sentence. Another example is when it becomes an object. For example, Mr. Ericksen loves writing poetry for his girlfriend. If you get rid of this part right here, you wind up with Mr. Ericksen loves writing, which that makes writing an object in this sentence, right? Mr. Ericksen is the subject, loves is the verb, and writing is the object, right? It is what is receiving my love. So if you have to ask yourself, is it a gerund, right? Is it functioning as a noun? If you can replace it with a noun, it is a gerund, right? If I switch drumming for burgers, hamburgers make me feel alive, then it functions. Water makes me feel alive. That still functions, right? So you can change it. If you can replace it with a noun, that means it's probably a gerund, okay? So if you want to see an example of it, Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin, right? There's a feeling I get when I look to the west and my spirit is crying for leaving. In my thoughts I have seen rings of smoke through the trees and the voices of those who stand looking. So feeling here is a noun because there is, right? There is the subject is a feeling, right? So if I change feeling with squirrel, there is a squirrel I get, right? It still functions. Or, since this is a Lord of the Rings reference, there is a ring I get, there is a spell I get, there is an elf I get, right? If you can replace the ing with a noun, then it works, right? Then it's a gerund. And then my spirit is crying for leaving, right? If we change that to squirrels, my spirit is crying for squirrels, then it still functions. My spirit is crying for elves. My spirit is crying for the mountains. My spirit is crying for Reese's peanut butter cups. All of those still function. So this functions as a noun. It is the object for crying, right? For my spirit is crying for leaving, right? Whereas this part, right, is crying is a verb, right? It's doing that thing. But looking, on the other hand, it actually describes those. So it's not a gerund, right? Because you can't say, and the voices of those who stand squirrel. It doesn't work. However, it does work as an adjective, which is the next thing that we talk about, right? Participles. So participles, it sounds complicated. It's really not. Participles are just when, why does it say, okay, it's not spelled wrong. Participles are when verbs are transformed into adjectives, right? And an adjective, those are describing words, right? You should know this already. So there's two kinds of participles that we're talking about today. Past participles, which are just verbs that are in the past tense, right? Usually ends in N, EN, T, ED, or D, right? Half-eaten apples, ruined castle, burnt toast, right? Because all of those, these in brown, right, they're the adjectives that describe the noun in blue, right? So that way you know what kind of castle we're dealing with. Because if you want to replace these with any adjective you want, you could say green apples, you could say rot. That's another one that we could do right here. We could do rotten fruit, right? But rotten, right? To rot is a verb, but so we change rotten to the past tense of rot, right? So it becomes an adjective there, rotten fruit. So that's a different way to do that. I guess that makes this one right here. This also becomes a participle because it is describing my spirit. Oh, look at that. We're learning new things together. And so present participle, it's that ing, which is that sort of passive voice thing right down here, right? Because we could say she was eating an apple by zombies, and it makes sense, so that makes it passive. They were ruining the castle by zombies. Maybe not so much. I was burning toast by zombies, right? My spirit was crying. My spirit is crying, right? It's describing what the spirit is. It describes the spirit. So that makes that a present participle, right? So make sure you know what your participles are. I have two examples. One is in the present participle from the song I'm Not the Man by Ben Folds. What will they write about me? What will the version be when all is said and done? Will they remember all of the places seen, the poems lost, or am I just wandering on? Yeah, I'm just wandering on. So wandering here with am is describing I. It's describing the narrator. It's describing Ben about what he is, right? He's wandering. And remember, just really quick, there's a huge difference between wander and wander, right? Wander is to think, whereas W-A-N, right? So think I'm wandering, whereas wander is to roam, right? Roamer, wanderer, nomad, vagabond, call me what you will, right? Metallica, serenade you during this trying time with heavy metal music. But that's, just a reminder to make sure you keep those in check. But these describe the narrator, right? So even though they have an ing, I cannot replace them with the noun, right? So wandering on, I can't say, or am I just squirrel? It doesn't work. But I could change wandering on with green, right? Or am I just green? Yeah, I'm just green. Or I'm tall. Yeah, I'm just tall. I'm tall. Or hungry. Gosh, I'm hungry right now. Am I just hungry? Yeah, I'm just hungry. So anytime you can replace it with an adjective, with any other adjective or a color or a flavor, anything that describes anything, that makes it a participle. For past tense, right, we have The Man of Constant Sorrow by Bob Dylan or the Soggy Bottom Boys, right? I'm going back to Colorado, the place that I started from. If I knowed how bad you'd treat me, honey, I never would have come, right? Started is the place, right? it's describing the place that he started from, right? So if I were to change I started, so we're gonna change that to brown. So the place that was green, right? Then that would change, right? Because it's describing the place. And so that's always the question you want to ask yourself. Is what is this verb doing? Is it describing? Is it a noun? That sort of basic question. And it takes some practice to getting used to. It's okay to take some time and really think about this, because you really have to think about what is the purpose of the noun, right? Or the purpose of the verb. Is the verb describing a thing? Is it a noun? Is it the object? Is it the subject, right? So all of those are questions that you want to ask when someone, for your assignments that are due later this week. Is this the noun? Is it an adjective? Or is it all three? Because there's one more, and it's adverbs. So this is the last one that we're going to talk about in this lesson are infinitives. And infinitives are just verbs that have to in front of it, right? So if you're taking Spanish class, so if you're learning Spanish, if you're not learning another language, this lesson will be much easier for you because you have to talk about these anyway. When I learned Spanish, I had to learn all of these in Spanish, and it really helped me learn English. So with infinitives, they're just unconjugated verbs in Spanish, right? So if I say hablar, that means to speak. But if I say hablo, that means I speak. So in infinitivo, in infinitives, that just means it has the to in front of it, right? It's unconjugated. For example, so with the infinitives, they work as adjectives, which is brown. They function as nouns, which are blue. And they function as adverbs, which are green. So, right, nouns, they are subjects and objects, places, things, etc. Adjectives, right, they describe things. And then adverbs describe verbs. So you can use a verb to describe a verb. Oh, man, I should have made a Thanos meme for that. I used the verb to describe the verb. Oh, anyway. Okay, so that's just something that will sort of help you understand. For example, to walk was her greatest desire. To walk is the object, because her greatest desire, right, is, anyway, to walk is a noun in this particular sentence right here. The way to go is an adjective because it describes the way. The way to go is through the woods. Because I can get rid of this and the sentence will still make sense, right? If I do this, poof, right? The way is through the woods, it will still function as a sentence. But if I want to give clarification about the way, poof, I get the way to go is through the woods. And then hopefully this sentence here describes, go away, gosh dang it, describes all of you. He hoped to understand, or let's be inclusive. There we go. She hoped, or he hoped to understand, right? Actually, we can make this gender neutral. That would be easier. They hoped to understand, right? So this to understand functions as an adverb because it describes hoped, right? So that is sort of an adverb there. So let's look at some examples. I wrote a poem because I had a really difficult time finding a song that had infinitives as adjectives, at least for a moment. So I wrote my own, because after we're done with this, we're gonna write some poetry, and so I just wanted to give you guys an example of writing it. So I went to find a place where I could find my peace, a place to rest my head, a place away from streets. My own road to show, my own road to own, my own road to roam, my own road to home. right? So all of these, to show, to own, to roam, all of these describe the road, right? So we're gonna turn this blue so that you understand what I'm describing, right? So I went to find a place. All right, let's find somewhere where I could find my peace, and then a place to rest, right? So to rest is describing the place. To show is describing the road. What does to show a road mean? I have no idea. I wrote it because it sounded nice. To own, right, describes the road that I want. To roam describes the road that I want, right? And then home. So just a quick poetry note: show, own, roam, home, right? You have that repeating sound there at the end, and that's how I came up with those words. So again, not necessarily making a lot of sense, but again, focusing on infinitives as adjectives, all of these describe the noun that comes before them, the antecedent. So that's an example of infinitives as adjectives. Infinitive as a noun, I love to love by Tina Charles, it's disco. Oh, I love to love, but my baby just loves to dance. He wants to dance, he loves to dance, he's got to dance. Oh, I love to love, but my baby just loves to dance. Oh, I love to love, but there's no time for our romance. No, 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 oh, right? So all of these are objects in their sentence, right? I is the subject, love is the verb, to love is the object, right? It's my favorite thing to do. Oh, see, I just used it again. An infinitive as a subject, right? My is the subject, or my favorite thing is the subject, to do, right? He wants to dance. What does he want to dance? So it's this object, 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 right? So is that making sense? It's pretty, like I said, it sounds new, it sounds crazy, but you guys are saying these things every day to each other all the time. You're just not aware that you're saying it. Of course, now that you know that this is what this is and it's your job to sort of look for it, you're not going to find it because that's how the universe is and it's garbage. But you'll know how this works. And then last, of course, is as the adverb, so learn to fly. I'm looking for a complication. I'm looking because I'm tired of trying. I make my way back home when I learn to fly high, right? So to fly describes the verb learn, right? Actually, I think this actually functions as a, flip, that might actually be a noun. But anyway, fart sandwich. But that's, again, the way you do it is always what's it doing in the sentence, right? Is it describing a noun? Then it could be a participle or infinitive, right? And you'll know because is it in the past tense? Does it have ing or to in front? Is it an object or a subject? That means it's either a gerund or infinitive. And you'll know which one if it has an ing at the end, or a to in the front. And is it describing a verb? And has to in the front? That makes it an infinitive. So I would recommend writing this down for your own sake. That makes it easier for you to sort of figure out how to find them, right? Because that is essentially what your assignment is going to be this week, is finding and identifying different verbals, and just as you go along throughout your day. For example, this is just a practice part of the thing here, so we're going to Dora Explorer this. Right, The Best of You by Foo Fighters. I've got another confession to make. I'm your fool. Everyone's got their chains to break. Holding you. So how are these infinitives used? I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. Pause the video. So I guess really you can take as long as you'd like, or you don't. It's up to you. You can make that choice, right? It's all up to you. Dora the Explorer. If you answered that they are adjectives, you'd be correct because they describe the confession and they describe the chains, right? That's how they work. So they're infinitives that function as adjectives. So what you need to do this week, you need to finish your myths. Some of you are already done. I will grade them soon and get that done and taken care of. They are all due Friday. I wouldn't spend more than 20 minutes a day working on it. You should be pretty much done by now. And again, if you aren't, wrap it up. You have a verbals quiz, which shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes. Whoops. And then you have an assignment where you are going to find examples of verbals in song lyrics. I want 3 as a minimum. It's worth 15 points because you're going to give me the artist, the song name, the lyrics, what verbal is being used, and then you're going to explain it. So what I want to see is something like this, right? This is what I want, right? So this is 1 point for one song. This is 1 point for another song, for the same song. This is 1 point. This is 1 point, and this is 1 point. So that's what I want. Song title, artist, lyric that you found, how they're being used, and explain to me how they're being used. So you need to find an infinitive. You need to find an infinitive, you need to find a participle, and you need to find a gerund. If you want extra credit, I want you to find all of what I showed you. So I want a gerund, I want a past participle, a present participle, and an infinitive as an adjective, noun, and adverb. Again, that's just extra credit. You don't have to do it because that will take quite a lot of time. And I know that despite school being out, or rather attendance, physical attendance at school is not mandatory, you still have this assignment to do. And I know you're still getting work from other teachers. So again, the minimum is just this, right? So 3 songs, or even the same song, right? But find an infinitive, a participle, and a gerund. And that's your assignment. So have a wonderful 2 weeks. Next week, or now, I mean, it's up to you. You can choose your own pace, but I recommend waiting until next week. You can look at lesson number 2 and do the assignments there. It's punctuation stuff. So have fun, enjoy yourselves. Make sure you actually get your work done. And be safe, right? Wash your hands.